welcome to the March Madness Sweet 16 special. Give you a little preview here of the matchups that are about to happen with me. My brother again, joining me again, Casey up top here. I got Nico down below here from the Far End of the Bench podcast, brought to you here at Variety Sports Network on the Collegiate channel here. Nico, how you doing, my friend? How'd you enjoy the weekend out there in Denver? Had some games out there.
Oh, great weekend. I had my alma mater, GCU Grand Canyon Lopes, playing here in Denver, so I got to see my boys play. Unfortunately, we lost to the Zags in the first round, but Gonzaga looks like a damn good team. So, but yeah, it was great basketball. Anytime you get a chance to go see March Madness game, if you're in the vicinity of being able to go, I would highly recommend it. It's a great time, great atmosphere. It's so much fun because you have 4 different fan bases all in the same arena, and half of them are going crazy, and then the other half goes crazy for the other game. It's a great atmosphere, and the games were electric this past weekend. So, yeah, I got asked at work this week or today on Monday, like, "Hey, Nico, how was your weekend?" I was like, "It was great. I sat on my couch and sat in a seat watching basketball from noon till 10 p.m. at night." So, yeah, I had a great weekend. I couldn't have had it any better.
And that's what this tournament does to you. It turns a regular human being into
I feel like something's missing today. I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do with my time?
Exactly. Casey, we kind of talked about it last week. We went to the game in Sacramento with Princeton, Arizona, and then we went to the Boise because those games were in Sacramento. We went to the Utah State, Missouri game. So we got to see those couple games out there. All right, guys, let's get right into it here. We're going to get you in and out here in about 30 minutes here on the March Madness Sweet 16 preview. A lot of good games to get into, a lot of different angles to look at. Nico, let's start with you on this, and we'll get Casey jumping on it. Opening tip here. What's been your initial thoughts of the tournament? We kind of got that part, but what matchup? Let's maybe focus on that a little bit more. What matchup are you looking forward to here in the Sweet 16?
Ooh, my number one. It's actually I have 2 that I love, but there's one that stands out above the rest. It's that Gonzaga UCLA rematch of 2 years ago. It's the Adam Morrison losing to UCLA his senior year. It's a Jalen Suggs half court heave to beat UCLA in the Final Four. It's that matchup for me. I think UCLA had a slight hiccup against Northwestern, but they have been one of the most dominant teams in the tournament through the first 2 games by far. Gonzaga, too, 8 straight Sweet 16 appearances. That is nothing to take lightly. So 2 teams that obviously want to get one up on each other. UCLA wanting to get a little bit of revenge. Gonzaga obviously wanting to prove that there's still something, and then they're still top of college basketball world. But I love every part of this game. You have Jaime Jaquez, who's an absolute dog. Drew Timme, who, I mean, God, seeing Drew Timme in person, I cannot tell you. I don't know how Gonzaga just doesn't give him the ball every second that they're on offense. Just get out of the way and give Drew Timme the ball, because there's not very many people on this planet that can slow him down. And you have that matchup in down low. I mean, this is a basketball dream.
Case, we talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show, that matchup. Now that we've kind of had a day to think about it a little bit, we went on the air right after the Gonzaga game, so we kind of overdid it. Now that we got a little time to think about it a little bit here, I also have the line there below.
Shout out the Frogs covering the 4.5.
Yeah, exactly. The end of the 3 at the end of the game. I could tell when the guy made the 3 and the crowd went, ah! I was like, something was on the line.
Yeah, I was one of the people losing their minds.
Yeah, you're the one that screwed over on that one. Well, Case, what do you think now that you've had 24 hours to think about it? Do you still feel like this might be the game of the day, the game of the weekend?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it's just 2 class personified, collegiate teams going at it.
And West Coast teams.
West Coast, obviously, biased.
Best side.
Yeah. Like you were speaking on, Nico, it's just you got so many players and name players, with Duke being out, Kentucky being out, all these major teams that are no longer in the tournament. I mean, Michigan State's the only team, 1 of 8 left from the Big Ten to be in there. So that speaks to how good their conference was, being sarcastic. But, it just, it proves to you, you have to have senior leadership. You have to have some crazy buckets. You have to have turnovers. And me and Dan were talking about offensive rebounds are just killers in the NCAA tournament. They always seem to come to dunks or threes. But, yeah, no, definitely the Zags and UCLA. To me, it's just, it's one of those games. I feel it's just going to be an epic game, even like an overtime game. And you got 2 great coaches going at it. To me, it's just, man, West Coast, like you said, is the best coast, man.
Well,
for it.
Well, like we said, they played a beauty of a last game with Suggs at the buzzer. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better game there. So I agree. I think that's maybe the juiciest matchup there. Case, you got another matchup there in the Sweet 16 you're maybe looking forward to?
Man, San Diego State. See if
Oh,
they can.
there, boy, let a West Coast shut out.
If they can, because if you think about it, Alabama, right?
Versus Alabama, yeah.
Man, if Alabama gets through that, they got the easiest path because you go San Diego State or you're playing Providence or Florida Atlantic. Like, I mean, if you don't get by this one, I mean, it's almost a lock to get to the Final Four, I would think. So to me, it's just Florida Atlantic. Jonell Davis, man, he's got some game. 29 points last game, and it was just that FDU game, man. That was fun to watch, just back and forth. It was like watching an NBA game, just less talent, obviously, but the pace just incredible.
Nico, what do you think about that game there? What do you think of Alabama? I mean, they look pretty strong.
Man, it sickens to my stomach because I'm the basketball guy on our show, and I stick strong to the football guys. Have your football fun. Get the fuck away out of here. You have too much fun, man. Fuck out of here. I don't need any more of this BS with you winning basketball too. Like, you've won enough football. Get out of here. Like, let the basketball schools win the basketball tournaments is all I'm gonna say.
There you go.
But look, San Diego State had one of the easiest paths. Obviously, the Sweet 16. You face a 12, you face a 13. It's going to be very favorable. Obviously, the Mountain West had that 8 straight losses before San Diego State won their first round matchup, so they were on that downslide completely. But you face a Bama team that just rolled Maryland, rolled Corpus Christi. I mean, like I said, Bama is at a point where, well, do they need to play their star guys at the end of games, right? Like Brandon Miller is getting rested. You have a full week to prepare. Nate Oates, I mean, as idiotic as he is off the court, he is the most athletic team in the country, and one of the best defensive teams in the country, and that's a big thing for them. I think Creighton could give them some trouble. What I saw from Creighton in the 2 games here in Denver, I was very impressed. They handled Baylor. And in that first game they played as well. NC State didn't really have a chance either. So I think they're a team that could give them a little bit of trouble. But San Diego State, man, they have not played anything to the level of Bama at all this season.
No,
I just love what you said about those football teams because I was ripping me and Darren our last podcast. I said, Texas, stay with your football, man. We don't need this crap. Stay with what you're good at. Man. We don't need any of that. You got one sport, dominate at it. Let us other people, let the other schools have their thing.
We gotta have a little love too for it. That's like the baseball. That's why Vanderbilt gets baseball. I always say they get that for that reason. Oregon State gets baseball. They get the next. All right, the matchup I'm kind of intrigued by here is the Spartans Kansas State game. Nico, you were at that when Kansas State was in Denver, right?
No, they weren't in Denver.
Okay.
No, but I was watching that
Okay.
Kansas State Kentucky game intently.
And that Noel was fantastic. I mean, he put on a show for them in that game, and the rainbow threes he has there. And Michigan State, like always, my theory when I tweeted yesterday is like just never pick them or UConn. We're gonna get them later, but never pick against those teams that make the Sweet 16 at least. I don't know, like they just have a way to do it. They're 2-point favorites as of today. Well, I think that will get bedded down a little bit here as we get closer to the game. I think people will start to kind of go towards Kansas State a little bit more to make that line a little bit more even come game day. I gotta say, I go with Michigan State just because of Izzo, and that's weird to say. Like, it's weird. He has 53 wins now in the tournament. That's still at 6 all time. Their teams are tough. They just know how to play. He knows how to like grind out W's, very similar to Jim Boeheim and Syracuse, where it got to 1 game elimination. It's almost like he was able to scout teams and run their offense as well and figure out defensive weird strategies. And his guys are tough. He breaks clipboards for them. So, what do you think about that matchup there with Kansas State and Michigan State? To me, that's very intriguing as well.
I just can't roll with Michigan State because the last time the Big Ten won a championship was 2000, which was we're talking about 20 years here, fellas. That's a long time. I mean, that's Mateen Cleaves, Jason Richardson. That's a long time ago, fellas. So I just can't roll with Big Ten. Michigan State.
Even to get to the Elite Eight, though?
I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think the brand of basketball is way more up and down nowadays. And to me, it's just – I know Tom Izzo is a hell of a coach, and I got nothing but respect for him. I think he's done an incredible job with that program and done it honestly, too. No allegations, none of that. They've had a few things, obviously it's going to happen from time to time. He didn't handle a few things very well, but he kind of made up for that and, understood his mistakes and flaws through that. But I just see Kansas State. I think the athleticism really shows in the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four. I think it's just, I just don't see Michigan State pulling this off.
I mean, as they say, January, February, Izzo, April, right? Like it seems like whenever the bright lights turn on, Tom Izzo turns the world upside down and realizes it's his world, and you're playing Michigan State basketball type of way. Look, I am very high on this Kansas State team. I really am. I think, look, Keontae Johnson, if you don't know the story, is one of the best stories in college basketball. Obviously, he had that cardiac arrest on the floor while he was at Florida. He could have took insurance money from the NCAA over $5 million. He decided, no, I'm not done playing ball. And goes to K-State and plays. And he has that team with Marquise Noel playing overconfident right now, absolute uber confidence. And you're looking at a team that Michigan State plays that gritty type of basketball. They play that hard-nosed basketball, but there's a team that can get hot, and it's hard to stop them. It may be this K-State team. And 5'7" Marquise Noel doing it in front of the Kentucky bench, doing it with the big balls he had on Sunday. I love this K-State team. I really do. I think they could be poised for a Final Four run in this bracket that is all hell breaking loose. You have no idea who the hell is going to come out of this. And man, Kansas State, I cannot say enough about what Noel and Johnson have done with that great coaching staff over there at K-State, that I think this team could have the makings for a Final Four run.
Before we get to our question of the week here, let's hit on that the bracket in there with Michigan State there and K-State. Let's go to the other matchup, which is Florida Atlantic and versus Tennessee. And we talked about this yesterday with Tennessee. I mean, you talk about a hard-nosed defensive team in a college aspect. I mean, Rick Barnes' teams are also tough to also trust, Casey. You got to say that come this time of the year. He hasn't quite got the job done, I think, to say the least there. Tennessee, though, they do have some guys out there that play really tough. I think they depend a little too much on their defense come tournament time here. I do like them. I do like Florida Atlantic to cover the spread there at +5. I would take them in the matchup like this. I thought that was a good win against Memphis. I actually believed in Memphis a little bit. They showed me some things against Houston their last two matchups. So I not saying I'm going to take Florida Atlantic to win, but I definitely would take them +5 there. What do you think, Nico, that matchup there?
I think Florida Atlantic got a little too high on themselves. I'll say
with the dunk attempt yesterday.
The dunk attempt, and look, if that dunk attempt was against Purdue in the second round, obviously I probably would have loved it a lot more. Yeah. But the fact that they did it against the lonely 16 seed and showing off against a team that you should have handedly beat, right? Like Fairleigh Dickinson stuck around for the majority of that game, had it tied at 1.5 minutes left. And we're talking about an FAU team that is tied for the most wins in college basketball with Charleston and with Houston. So they won a lot of ball games this year. So they know how to win good ball games. But I'll tell you one thing right now. If Tennessee plays the big man game and plays the good hard-nosed defense that they played against Duke, FAU may not score more than 50 points. What Tennessee just dismantled Duke defensively is something that very few teams can handle. And if that defense of Tennessee comes from this game and against FAU, I don't think FAU has a shot in this one. I think they cover the -5, honestly. But that's but Tennessee has that stigma of Rick Barnes not be able to make a run, right? There's a few coaches out there. Rick Barnes is one of them, and Tennessee looking for a Elite 8 run here. If they play as hard as they did last on Sunday or Saturday, whatever it was, I think they have a good shot of winning this and moving on.
I do like the lefty on Tennessee, Casey. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, to your point, Nico, I think that dunk attempt, though, from like the FAU squad, I mean, they had one win 3 years ago, then 5, then 8, now they're in the tournament. So it's like, there's that kind of like.
They don't know that type of success yet.
Right? You got to have swagger. True. After you hit the bottom of the bottom, you get one win. 8. Now you're going to feel yourself a little bit. So,
well, Farley Dickerson had it. I mean, Purdue's probably loving it.
They loved Indiana losing more.
Probably so. All right, let's get to our question of the week here, brought to you by Row One Brand. Here, use the code VSP15, get 15% off anything in the art gallery. Maybe some nice March Madness stuff there. All right, hey, who should be the favorite now to win the whole thing? Like, we can get to Houston if that's where this leads to. That's fine, but who do you think? Let's go to KC first, and we'll go to Nico. Casey, who do you think should be the favorite here?
It's got to be Alabama, man. I mean,
Yeah, sticking with Alabama.
Got to be. I mean, I know Brandon Miller's got a little groin injury going right now. So, but you're speaking, they don't really got to play a lot of guys right now because they've been so dominant.
Yeah.
But to me, I think that they have the most talented roster that there's left in the tournament.
I have to second that too. I do think that. Look, I don't love Houston because Marcus Sasser obviously ailing injury as well. You don't know how they're going to look going forward when they have to face a very defensively minded team in Miami and a great rebounding team too. So that may be a little bit difficult for them. I look to the West region though for the next best option because I think that this UCLA team has the makings. Look, without Jalen Carter, I think that hurts them a lot. They could be the best team in the country with Jalen Carter, but UConn is hitting on all cylinders. And UConn's a team that with Hurley over there that people aren't really talking about. Arkansas, great story. You knocked off Rothschild Jayhawk, but I think this UConn team could give them a good run for their money. And I think that Gonzaga, I don't think can match up to Alabama. But if you're looking for speed and you're looking for a team to match Alabama's style, I think I could be looking at Houston or UCLA. Or not Houston, sorry, UConn or UCLA.
Yeah, and I think UConn's a good answer. Let's go to that game right there with UConn versus Arkansas. Muscleman with the shirt off. Me and Casey talked that. Mike Dunleavy's proud. If you're a hardcore Warriors fan, you know what we're talking about there. Mike Dunleavy would be proud of you. Most people don't know that, Nico. Mike Dunleavy did get ejected in a game and took off his shirt and threw it into the stands. A lot of people don't remember that moment of him in the NBA. Muscleman pulls it off, goes full onto it. UConn is one of those teams where they just come tournament time. They're always very tough. They're a tough out every year. I love the big man they got. I mean, obviously we were rooting for St. Mary's out here. They were the local team we had, and they go down to them. I'm with you. I think UConn can make a serious run. Case, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, UConn early in the season, they were like number one, I believe, AP poll for a little bit, and then they kind of had a downslide. But you're gonna have ebbs and flows throughout the season, but I think they're hitting on all cylinders. Like right now, they're playing their best brand probably since they played in the early part of the year. And they got some length, man. They're big. Then they can shoot. Like it's not just – you kind of always – with Jim Calhoun, it kind of reminds you of that feel like that Kemba Walker run that they had. They're playing good and they're playing great at the right time. And that's all it really takes.
And that's the thing that makes UConn always dangerous. They make a run every 6 years. They have these guys that get fire on there. Let's go to another thing here with it. What do you got for Star Watch? You got a player that maybe you're looking for? You're looking to maybe keep an eye on here come the Sweet 16 that maybe either impressed you, didn't show up in the first round. There, you got somebody, Nico.
Based off people I haven't talked about yet, obviously the Keontae Johnsons, the Millers, the Sassers, the Drew Timmeys. Like I said, if UCLA makes a big run, Jaime Hawkins is a fucking dog. Jaime Hawkins is a guy that there's very, very few people that play as hard as him. And him and Tiger Campbell over there at UCLA, those are two names. If UCLA makes a big run here, expect those two names to be household names because obviously you lose Drew Zhang. You lost a couple guys the last couple of years to the league and the G League and all that. But this team retooled perfectly. And Hawkins, if he wasn't at the same position as Drew Timme, he wasn't the same position as Brandon Miller or some of these other big wings, he'd probably be in conversation for National Player of the Year. That's how good he is. So I love Jaime Hawkins out of UCLA.
That's what makes that matchup versus Gonzaga so interesting as well this week. Two senior, really prototypical college players going at it this week. It's going to be
probably not going to do much at the next level, but
no, but it's just it's kind of a fun little matchup there. It should be a very competitive game there. Case, you got a star player. I mean, he mentioned the guy from Houston, Sasser. To me, he's a good player to keep on. Snead as well is a good player there on for Houston as well. You got somebody else you keep an eye on?
I was just thinking about the two players you named. You were saying about the NBA. I was like, oh, Tyler Hansbrough and Casey Jacobson. Is that what we're talking? But
Psycho T. I have some long histories with Psycho T. Don't you worry.
But now to get back on track here, I would say Brandon Miller. He's got a lot to prove, man. Especially after all the allegations, and he's trying to be a top pick in the NBA. He's got a lot to prove right now. I think not necessarily on the court, but how he handled himself throughout the rest of the tournament. And that boy can play, man. He's got game. He could. I could see him almost, being that number one pick overall. But I think the maturity level he needs to show throughout the rest of this tournament is going to play a big part in where he goes in that draft.
Let's go to Houston off of this now because they have a lot of star players on their team. Let's go to that matchup here versus Miami. To me, that's a very intriguing matchup because Miami's been playing really well lately as well. And then you have Houston, like we said, they have a lot of good players on their team as well. Sasser included in there. What do you think about this matchup with Houston? The Final Four is in Houston. Can they get there, Nico? Can they make it there?
See, if the script writers from the NFL are script writing college basketball, then Houston will be in the Final Four. So take with that how you want to. But like I said, this Miami team, a lot of people, including myself, picked Drake to beat them in the first round, and they come in, they take care of business with Drake. Obviously, Drake was a very big 5 versus 12 matchup that a lot of people had, and then you go against a team in Indiana who had Trace Jackson, Davis, and who is a very, very big team, not great guards, and you out-rebounded them by 19 rebounds in the second half. I mean, that is unheard of, especially for a team of Indiana's standard. So that's a team where if Houston really wants to beat this team, they're going to have to dig down and work on getting those rebounds because offensive rebounds are the name of the game. Isaiah Wong, and they got a bunch of dudes in Miami that are just not afraid to huck it up. They are not afraid to pull the trigger and let it loose. So if you are allowing these second, third chance points like Indiana did, you're gonna be in for a long night. But if you are able to close out and minimize those second chances, then you can beat this team who you on paper are much more talented than. But like I said, Miami gets hot at the right time and just out rebounds you to death. You're going to be in for a dogfight.
Yeah, I think if Houston seen Tim Donaghy walk through that court, they'd be pretty comfortable. But Miami's women, though, they just pulled off the upset, the 9 beating the number 1 against Indiana in their tournament. So it might have a little Miami magic going on right now. So sometimes collective thing that happens, the roles kind of works in weird and mysterious ways. But Miami's definitely talented. They play a good brand of basketball, very up and down, but they got really good guard play. And to me, I could really see Miami pulling this one off. Like, I don't think it'd be an upset at all, to be honest.
Yeah. Talk about bragging rights if Miami's beat the men beat them and the women. That's funny. Let's go to the next game here. Logan brings it up here. I don't know how he has time between his baseball show that he's doing here, but I appreciate your comment here, Logan Stone. This is the game. This is my Nico. If you don't know, my son is named Xavier, and a big reason I did name him Xavier is I did like the school. I like the name, but so he's in first grade now. He's addicted to basketball, and I'm telling you, he's watched every minute of those first 2 games. The other ones come on, Nintendo, other things distract him a little bit. I don't like the fact that Logan is picking him now because that kind of makes me a little bit worried there from that standpoint there. But I kind of want to go to that game too a little bit because obviously I've been able to watch him a little bit. A lot of people pick Texas to win the whole thing. The reason I like Xavier and I picked him in your guys' the ESPN thing we did there for the far end of the bench. I picked them in the bracket challenge there, and I think I looked today. I'm the only one with Xavier, so that makes me feel good. So if they do make it all the way, I like my chances. Sean Miller to me is a good tournament coach as well, and I don't know, like Texas, I like him. But I don't know if I just don't know if I'm there yet to buy all the way in. I think this is a good chance for Xavier to move on to the Elite 8.
Yeah, I think. Look, this Xavier team. You hit the nail on the head. Sean Miller has done a great job with Xavier. Right, he obviously had all the things at Arizona, and then he comes over and he's a Sweet 16 darling. Right, like he knows how to get to the Elite 8 and be sniffing around that Final Four. So that's and the Big East obviously is a conference this year that you have 2 teams left, I believe, or no, three teams left still. Like one of the few conferences with, I think maybe it's the most teams left in the conference among conferences that are absolute animals. And the one thing that with the Texas team obviously is, look, Texas went through a lot of adversity, similar to Alabama, obviously different ways. But Chris Beard being gone after the first month, you have guys like Shabari Rice that just stepped up and took over the role. Right, Rodney, I can't remember the name off the top of my last name off the top of my head, but their head coach has done a phenomenal job of getting the boys ready to play the right way. Penn State, that was no walkthrough. They had to grit and grind that through. But like I said, this Texas team, it's a question mark. Or it's almost like talking about Texas in football, right? It's like, are they ready though? Like, is this team ready? Do these guys have the guts of what it takes to take the stigma off of Texas, right? I think they have a great team. I think they're one of the most talented top to bottom teams. But at the same time, I think Texas does take this matchup. And I'm riding with Tyler and F. Sean Miller.
Tyler had a great rant. I don't know if you guys saw the short he had, but he was ripping on it because his team's Arizona, and he was just ripping on them. And he's like, "How do you lose to a team that produces presidents?" Like, he's like, "How do you like he was just all ticked off about it." So, and he said it made it worse because Xavier comes back and wins that game. So, shout out to our guy Tyler tuning in there. We're sorry, man. We're pulling for Xavier though. That's the way. Tyler doesn't care anymore. He's like, I'm not even watching the tournament. I will say this: going to an upset live is fun for the NCAA tournament. When we were there at that Princeton one, like just to hear the crowd kind of take it on was a different level, even if it was. Sorry, Tyler. He probably wants Sean Miller now after seeing those performances from them. All right, so I think that to me is a good game as well this series. All right, we got one more game to get into, but just one last quick, kind of a fun little thing I'd like to get. Nico, what's like a Sweet 16 game that kind of stands out to you or a memory that you might have?
Look, I'll raise my hand. I loved Adam Morrison as a kid. And that UCLA versus Gonzaga matchup. The first time where Adam Morrison was crying on the ground. That was one of the first games that made me fall in love with college basketball. Funny enough, and watching that as a kid was something. A couple of the other standouts. Another one that stands out big time for me was that Trey Burke shot against Kansas with Michigan. Michigan just seemed like a team of destiny, and I loved what that team did. Trying to get a banner up versus the Fab Five. I thought that team with Trey Burke, Hardaway, I can't think of the rest of the names off the top of my head, but they had a very, very fun team that had a lot of good teams. And then another team that I loved watching, especially that was really good Sweet 16, were those Russ Smith, Louisville teams. Those Louisville teams that with Montrezl Harrell and company. Yeah, they were a great team to watch in the Sweet 16. That always seen with those hideous camouflage sleeved jerseys. I mean, those things that have luckily went so far out of style, it doesn't matter anymore. But going back, watching those games, I'm like, how the fuck they let these guys watch that?
There's a few things out there.
A few things, but yeah, I loved watching those Louisville teams too during the Sweet 16 era.
That's awesome.
They were must-watch TV.
The Sweet 16 is a fun round too because it's like it's not you're not there on the Final Four pressure, but it's just kind of like this. Like you might have some underdogs there with it. Casey, you got one off the top of your head?
It was funny when he said Louisville. I was like, the vampire, Rick Pitino's back.
St. John's, baby. St. John's, baby.
70-year-old, the Rick Pitino bringing St. John's from the dead.
But no, my West Coast bias for sure. But I loved watching the Davidson against Wisconsin, and then seeing LeBron James, Steph Curry doing his thing. It was just that whole run, man. It felt like a different time of basketball too. So it was just the Georgetown, the whole run being Gonzaga, like everything that had to go into it. That whole run was just special.
Mine's kind of like is Indiana beating Duke in 2002 with Coverdale and Jeffries. Like that Duke team was like at that time looked upon as like this could be one of the best college basketball teams ever with Chris Duhon and Jay Williams and Dunleavy and Boozer. So that one to me was always a big one. And then Indiana ends up making it all the way to the championship game. Just a crazy run there. So that's a Sweet 16 game that stands out to me for sure. All right, let's get to the last game here. Then we'll get to our Final Four kind of predictions here, and we'll call it a show here. Guys, Creighton versus Princeton. Who knew? Princeton, they end up surviving Arizona with a 9-0 run in the second half, and then they end up kind of beating Missouri pretty easily. And here we go against Creighton, who last year, I remember, I forget the point guard's name off my head, but he got hurt before the tournament. And then they go out early. Obviously, you don't want to lose your main point guard in college basketball. It's a big no-no come tournament time. They have him back. Great opportunity here for Creighton to make the Final Four. But this number 20, that's all I'm going to call him. His name's too difficult. This number 20 from Princeton, from Manchester City, England, is a pretty good player. And so we'll see what they do against him. What do you think, Nico?
I'm putting my eggs in the basket. I don't know what the spread's at with this one, but Creighton is I think can roll these guys. I don't think there's a guy that on Princeton's squad that can lock down Cole Brenner in the middle.
10-point favorite.
10-point favorite. Oh God, that may be even too much for me. But I like I said, what Creighton?
The buzzer.
I know. As Creighton dismantled Baylor, and I was watching that game because I had Baylor money, and I was like, how the fuck did this team really just pull this off? Like they worked on every facet of the game. They were knocking down threes, playing good hard defensively. They were allowing nothing easy down the middle. That was one thing that Princeton was able to do against Arizona, against Missouri, was that what we like to call Olay defense, right? You go down the paint, get those layups, get those free buckets that they will not be able to do against Creighton. And I think Creighton does have a chance to take Bama to the distance and then give them a run for their money. So I look, it was fun. It was fun while last year. It feels weird saying Princeton is your Cinderella because everyone knows the school, but they're not a basketball school. Look, no one knows where Princeton or no one knows where Oral Roberts is. No one knew where VCU was. No one knew where all these other schools were, but they know where Princeton is, and so it doesn't feel like a Cinderella, but reality, 15 seed making this far is worth a watch.
And they were a pretty good case for a 15 seed. Like we said, the guy number 20, you kept saying, like, just give him the ball. It was a mismatch for almost everybody on the team. From England, who knew?
I told you the whole time. I was like, man, just feed him in the rock. It was like you saying with Drew Timme. I was like, just give him the ball. Every time you get him the ball, something good happens. There's a rebound. Like he's their main cog for their team. I think if he plays well, they're going to play well. And he has a knack of just taking over. I won't say taking over, but subtly, you can just tell as a basketball person that watches the game, he controls the floor for him. But it is, Princeton. You think about the coach for Princeton. I think it's Mark Henderson, I believe. I could be wrong. He did pull the upset when he was playing as a point guard against UCLA, the national champs in the 90s. So if there's going to be a guy that knows how to do it, he's the man.
Little magic. Again, who's the father of the Creighton coach? What's the guy's name? It's McDermott, right?
McDermott, yeah. It's not
Mr.
Doug,
We'll call him Mr. McDermott. Mr. McDermott there. All right, so that we got Creighton, Princeton. To me, I'm kind of, like I said, low-key looking for that game, only more so, Niko, because I actually saw him play in person. I feel like that makes a difference. When you see the teams play, like you're a little bit more invested in them once you see them a little bit here. All right, this has been fun, guys. A little March Madness, Sweet 16 preview. Like I said, to have my brother here and Niko at the same time, this is great. This has been fun, having you guys preview a little bit here. Let's get to our final question here, and we'll call it a show here. If you guys can remember the brackets off your head here, you probably have to reset it a little bit. What do you got now maybe as your final four picks? I'll go first, maybe give you a little time to think about it a little bit here. So I got in that one, I still think I like Alabama to make it. I really my heart wants to pick San Diego State, but I'm going to stick with where I have Alabama there with it. I'm going to go with Michigan State still over in the other round there. So I'm going to go, so the Michigan State would play Alabama in the Final Four. And I'm going to go with the Zags still. I'm going to go with Gonzaga to beat UCLA. Tim A. I'm going to go with Mr. Tim A.
The amount of times I heard Timmy on Friday got drilled into my brain as a GCU fan and the Gonzaga fans just ripping the Timmy every other.
What teams did you get to see?
I got to see. So I didn't see the Friday midday games, but I saw GCU versus Gonzaga. Then I saw ASU versus
that was a good game.
Versus TCU. That was the game winner. TCU hit a game winner.
Yeah.
And then I saw the TCU Gonzaga, and I saw the what was the other one? Creighton versus Baylor.
Yeah, you saw some good games in there.
There were some great games.
Yeah, those are some really good ones. And then my other one is, of course, I'm going with Xavier to finish it off in the Final Four. So that would be my Final Four. Niko, you got one there with your Final Four still?
Well, my initial bracket was completely dead, right?
I'm sure it is.
I don't know what in the world I was thinking with picking a back-to-back national champion, thinking Kansas will be able to do it again. So there was my first mistake. But in the redo Final Four, based upon what I'm seeing, I'm picking Bama. That's pretty easy. I think that they can beat everyone in their region. I'm going to go with the heartthrob, and look, I think that they could turn into America's team, and that's Kansas State. I think I'm going to pick Kansas State to the Final Four. I think Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel have the ability to take this team to the Final Four. I'm going to go Texas in the Midwest. I think this Texas team Like I said, Jamari Rice has those boys playing hard. Do I think they'll be a national championship team? I don't know because I have them playing against. Look, I hyped up UConn a lot, but I'm going to ride with UCLA. I think UCLA can get to the Final Four as well. I think that winner of the Gonzaga UCLA game can get to the Final Four. I think both teams are prepared to make that deep run. So, yeah, give me Texas, UCLA, Bama, and K-State.
Man, that Gonzaga UCLA game, the more we just keep talking about it, it looks just extra juicy there. Casey, you got a Final Four there?
Alabama, Alabama, Houston, Florida Atlantic, and I'm rolling with Gonzaga.
I like it. FAU, I like it.
They make the 360 duck. It was like last year when I did I call them dad bets, Nico. I do like 50-cent bets. So I did like 4 different ones sometimes in like the 32. And I picked like St. Peter's along with like 4 other teams that got it right. It won like 50 cents, $80. I was like, yeah, let's go. So those are the best when you throw a little into there with it. All right, guys. Hey, that was a good show. A good chance for us to talk about the Sweet 16 matchups here. A lot of good games to get into. Niko, far on the bench, you guys doing anything this week? You guys taking the week off? What do you guys got ahead here?
We have our shows coming out on Thursdays, 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, so 1 o'clock Eastern. So we have our shows coming out once a week on Thursdays. We had our first round bracket breakdown with one of my good buddies, Jeremy Fear. He's an Indiana fan, unfortunately. So his girls team lost today too, so he's not very happy at all. After back-to-back days with Els. So that was a fun episode having him on, and we'll break down a lot more of these games like we did today here on this week's episode. So, but yeah, you can follow us at FEOTB Pod, like it says on the Twitter handle right there, on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Jimmy likes posting TikToks every now and then too. So we come out with shows once a week. So catch us on all platforms, and we'll be covering the rest of the whole tournament. There's the NFL drafts obviously coming up, so we'll have a lot to talk about that too. So. There's a lot of big things popping, and Nuggets and Avs are in postseason form, so we'll be hitting on all that. We sleep in May, or we sleep in June, as we like to say.
Maybe Daren froze on us.
Daren looks like he might have froze out on us.
You there, bro? Oh, man, he might have cut it off. Well, hey, Niko, that was fun, man. It was good chopping up with you, man, talking sports, man. That was a blast.
Absolutely, Casey. No, it was great talking with you, my friend. Hopefully, we can talk some NBA soon because I know the boys over there are big Warriors fans. And obviously, I'm a Nuggets fan. So.
The ending of Darren's face might be the rest of the tournament, right?
Exactly. Well, I guess I'll do the sundown, weirdly enough. But all right. Well, this is Niko, Brian, speaking for Daren for the Fat Boy Fadeaway. His brother Casey. Catch us Variety Sports Network. We'll be coming out with March Madness shows for a while now. I don't know if I can end the live, but this is the end of the show. So see. We out.
Better.
Peace.